Founded in 2014, the Extraordinary Achievers' vision is to empower others to be the best version of themselves. The show is hosted by Chief Lady Waynette Peters, a multi-entrepreneur, empowerment speaker, confidence mentor, positive lifestyle coach, humanitarian ambassador, and a TV host. Lady Waynette is a holder of over 35 international awards for her humanitarian, philanthropic, and international empowerment contributions and holds 2 chieftaincy titles. Welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers Show.
Thank you for joining us to another episode of the Extraordinary Achievers Show, where we are covering community affairs and interests. Please do join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. live on Facebook, YouTube, or on our website. And there's several other social media platforms that we do air live on. And we are also available on a replay. To all our viewers from the various Facebook platforms, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, including our website viewers, thank you for your patronage, thank you for your support, and thank you for sharing. Please do subscribe to our social media links, kicking off with subscribing to news links and updates from our website.
For real-life stories broadcasted live on air, do please subscribe to our newsletter from our website. We will be honored if you could please like and follow our Facebook pages. Stay in touch and tune in by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you for following us on our Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and TikTok. We are live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. GMT. Please do share with others.
Since the secretive nature of the criminal world, it is hard to tell the true number of victims of human trafficking. What can be said is that human trafficking is more prominent now than it has ever been in the world. The National Crime Agency believes the number of victims is in the tens of thousands within the UK alone. According to UN estimates, approximately 136 people were trafficked in UK in 2018. A report referred it into the National Referral Mechanism said and outlined that 61% of potential victims claimed to have been exploited in the UK alone, whilst 25% claimed that they were exploited overseas. Hope for Justice says every child has a right to their family, to know them, to live with them, and to grow with them. At the Extraordinary Achievers, we say everyone has the right to live freely. It is their right. We thank our guests that we have this evening that are advocates, that are out there helping, assisting families, assisting individuals, and assisting those that cry that we don't even know of and we hardly sometimes think of. Before we introduce you to our guests, we're going to welcome some of our viewers by putting some of their comments up on our screens. We thank you for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. We thank you for supporting us. We thank you for sharing, and we thank you for being part of the community. Together, we are the Extraordinary Achievers. Thank you to Elizabeth. Elizabeth says good evening and good evening to you, and she says good evening to everyone on the platform. Patrick T, welcome back to the Extraordinary Achievers. Thank you. And we have Sir Pastor himself, Paseda, says hi and good evening to you, and amazing work you're doing with the disabled in the community and abroad. And Bangi says good evening and good to be here and good to have you back. Vicky, thank you very much, one of our team members, and we thank you for your work with the Extraordinary Achievers. Samuel Dinsey, welcome back onto the Extraordinary Achievers, and thank you for joining us and thank you for the compliment. Joanne Empress, thank you for joining us. She says good evening and good evening to you. Prince Eze, all the way in America, an amazing and outstanding member in our community and absolutely insightful. Please do share the link to your WhatsApp group so more people can join your WhatsApp group, which is amazing and changing the world. And Joanne says, well done, team, thumbs up, and well done to the Extraordinary Achievers team. And thank you for joining us. And Bethany says, good evening and good evening to you. We thank you for your comments. We thank you for interaction. We thank you for interacting with our audience. We thank you for being part of what they're doing. Most of all, if you can join what they're doing and be part of what they're doing, we truly appreciate it. If you haven't shared tonight's program yet, please share it on WhatsApp groups. Please do share on Facebook groups. Please do share on your own Facebook pages, and let's get the word out. Someone out there needs help, and someone out there can help the organizations, some of those that we have on our platform today, to do more and to reach out for more. We are going to introduce you to survivors, campaigners, advocates, safeguarding consortium, human rights champions. We are here to discuss human trafficking, modern day slavery. We have our first guest, and we have Debbie Ario, OBE, that joins us on the Extraordinary Achievers today from Africa, Safeguarding Children, and the chair of BME Anti-Slavery Network. Debbie Ario, welcome onto the Extraordinary Achievers show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Debbie Ario is the Chief Executive of Africa, a UK charity she founded in 2001 to address child safeguarding and child trafficking issues in African diaspora communities and provide services to help support children and families and rehabilitate victims. A former UK civil servant, she holds an executive master degree in public administration from the London School of Economics and Political Science, a master degree in urban policy from the University of North London, and a bachelor degree in French and education from the University of Benin. Debbie also chairs the BME Anti-Slavery Network, BASNet, which she founded in 2019 to help promote racial equality, diversity, and inclusion in the UK and anti-trafficking sector. A noted expert in safeguarding children, Debbie has a specialist expertise in addressing sociocultural factors affecting the protection and safeguarding of children of Black and African origins in the UK and Europe. She's also a specialist in forced migration and human trafficking, and has vast experience of designing, implementing diaspora anti-trafficking engagement programs and service provision for victims and survivors. Debbie is an amazing woman and sits on many boards and has done so much, and she keeps on doing so much more. Her research report provides a range of recommendations to help inform and improve UK intervention to diaspora and Black and minority ethnic communities. Debbie was appointed an officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in the Queen's birthday list in June 2011 for her work with the children and families. And we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on the Extraordinary Achievers show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our first question to you today is, what inspired you to do the work that you do?
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me on your program. Well, in 2001, when I started Africa, it was simply because we had some children from African origin, like Damilola Taylor and Victoria Klimbie, especially Victoria Klimbie. For one reason, she was trafficked into the UK from a country in Africa, and she went through months of abuse and exploitation and harm. And unfortunately, she was failed by many service providers across the country. And so her story really touched me at that time. For one other reason was that she was actually about the same age as my daughter at that time. And I felt I wanted to do something to help stop this sort of issues from happening in future. And well, I mean, this was in May 2001 when we started Afruka. So that was over 20 years ago now. And unfortunately, we're still seeing cases of children being trafficked into the UK and being exploited, enslaved, and abused as a result. So I guess, unfortunately, that the work has to continue in order to help to safeguard as many children as possible.
We thank you for that introduction on how you got it. This an amazing heart that you have. Debbie, in your own eyes and in your experience, is it growing, and is it vastly growing?
It is growing. It is growing. There are so many phenomena that we're seeing now that we weren't seeing in 2001 when we started Afruka. For example, we're now seeing many cases in the UK today. We have a phenomenon referred to as county lines child trafficking, where British-born children are being trafficked from one part of the country to another part of the country to sell drugs or to move money for drug dealers. And of course, they're also exploited in that process, abused in that process, enslaved as part of all that. That phenomenon wasn't there in 2001. We have children who are being trafficked from different parts of Africa for sports. They're trafficked by agents who would exploit them because they will find them, sporting clubs in different cities in Europe. But the contract signed would actually disfavor the young person to the point where it's like they will get the contract, but it's like they're working for the agent with very little accruing to them from the work that they're doing. So those two phenomena were very absent in 2001. Another phenomenon that was absent in 2001 that we're seeing a lot of now is in relation to organ and trafficking. So people are being trafficked in order for people to harvest their organs so they could sell to the highest bidder. So organ harvesting, trafficking for organ harvesting is a big issue now in our community or across the world, generally speaking. So yeah, there's so many phenomena that we're seeing now that we weren't seeing 20 years ago.
So organs and organs for sale and organs wanted. And where are these organs going to? Who's asking for them? Who's buying them?
Oh, rich people. this all, I mean, if somebody is kidnapped or abducted or trafficked and their organs, their kidneys or their eyes or whatever it is harvested from them, of course, it's people who can have a lot of money who require these organs that are paying for them. So I guess organ harvesting is there to serve the needs of very rich, very powerful people in the world today. So unfortunately, poor people are trafficked. They're exploited in that way for the sole benefit of people who can afford to buy these organs.
And what happens to these people after the organs have been taken?
Well, it depends on what part of their body is being removed, but usually that really is the end of them, isn't it? If somebody's heart is removed from them, that is the end of them. If somebody's liver or heart or any other part of them is removed, that is the end of them. Or if the kidneys have been removed, the two kidneys have been removed, that is the end of them. It means that they're dead, they're gone. So they're being trafficked, they're being exploited in that way. And of course, the end result usually is death. It's a sad phenomenon in the world today.
It's very sad. In your organization, what have you managed to do so far?
Well, we are a charity. We work in two key ways. Firstly, we are, a prevention organization in the sense that we run a lot of awareness raising activities in the community. For example, this morning we held a session in our office in Manchester looking at financial exploitation, where people are trafficked and they're financially abused. In different ways. So we try to raise awareness about all these different issues so people are aware of them and they can act to protect themselves, their children, people close to them from being victims of, nefarious individuals who might want to use them in different ways. So, that's one element of our work. The other element of our work, of course, is in terms of the provision of support services for people who have been caught up in all these activities. So in the UK today, we're one of the few BME-led organizations providing services to support victims and survivors of human trafficking. And it could be human trafficking for domestic slavery or sexual slavery or any other forms of forced labor or forced exploitation in the UK today. So those are the two key activities that we engage in as a charity working in the anti-trafficking space in the UK.
Thank you. We are going to come back to you again in a moment, and we are just going to welcome some of our other viewers that we have at home that have put some comments on. We appreciate it. You just want to be a silent viewer and you don't want to put a comment on. But if you feel like it, please feel free. We were listening to Debbie Aria OBE from Africa Safeguarding Children, chair of the BME Anti-Slavery Network, Bassinet, and they're doing some amazing work. Melissa says, so excited with this topic as we raise awareness. And we thank you for your time and we thank you for your work on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. And Prince Eze says, sharing now on Global Advocate for Humanity. And Global Advocate for Humanity is Prince Eze, and there's a Facebook group and there's also a WhatsApp group. And I do urge others to join that group. Louisa says, good evening, my dear friend. Good evening, my love. And she says, good evening to everyone. And I'm here watching from YouTube as always. We appreciate you and we love you. And just to let the viewers know that I am wearing some jewelry from Louisa Atti and Louisa Favors and Louisa's Creations on Facebook. She's a very good friend of mine and she's doing an amazing work. And I love her. Watanai says, this is so sad. And Watanai, very true. And we thank Watanai, a former guest on the Extraordinary Achievers, and she's a woman that is doing so much for others. Patricia Bailey, another community advocate, says, good evening to all. And she says, it's very sad to hear this, and good evening to you. Melissa says, that's terrible that people do this. It is indeed. And we're thankful for our guests raising awareness. Vicky says, it makes me feel sad that people just close their eyes to this subject. Indeed. Let's go back to Debbie Aria OBE, who is the Chief Executive of Africa, as we ask her some more questions with her charity work. Debbie, what would you like to see more of being done?
Well, firstly, thank you. That is a very good question. I feel that the governments in Africa, especially, or I guess many other developing countries in Africa and the Caribbean, should be doing a lot more to actually address human trafficking and modern slavery. I feel that not enough is being done. I feel that there's so many people who have been caught up in different forms of human trafficking because they lack the awareness. They have no idea what risk they're putting themselves into. And of course, the governments are not doing enough to let people know that these issues are happening. And if you do A, B, C, D, and E, you might get yourself into trouble, and that trouble can actually also cost you your life, as I've just told you in relation to things like organ harvesting. So essentially, I feel that the government should be doing more to raise awareness of human trafficking and modern slavery, to let people know how to protect themselves and their children and their family members, their friends, but also to provide services to help meet the needs of women, children, and men and boys who have been caught up in this very evil forms of exploitation, in my viewpoint. So I feel that those things need to be happening, and they need to be happening now, definitely.
Thank you, Debbie. Debbie, and you talked about what the government can do, and individuals at home. What can the community do, and how can the community support your work?
Oh, thank you. To be honest with you, human traffickers are part of us. They are our friends, our family members, they are our neighbors. They are people we go to church with or we go to mosque with. They are people that we know. And it is important, that we start to take people to task on this. Why are you doing this so-called business? Why are you enslaving your fellow human beings? Why are you turning women into sex slaves? Why are you using children as house help or domestic servant, or as they say in Nigeria, or model, which in my viewpoint is a very terrible phenomenon? Why are you trafficking women to the Middle East to work as domestic slaves in those countries? We need to be asking all these questions of people that we know are involved in these activities. The main reason why, all these things happen unabated is because there is no repercussion for all these people who are doing all this stuff. There's no repercussion for them. The rate of prosecution is extremely low. There's nothing to stop them from doing this. So I guess one thing that's missing is that we can appeal to their moral conscience to say, look, you shouldn't be doing this. As my brother, as my friend, as my sister, you shouldn't be trafficking in human beings, because this causes a lot of pain and suffering for fellow human beings. And so, in my viewpoint, to help our work, we want people to be speaking out against human trafficking and modern slavery.
Thank you. And Debbie Aria OBE, what is the final word that you have for our guest this evening? We are aware that you have another engagement to go to, hence we fired all the questions all at once to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank
Well,
you.
I mean,
What's your final word for this evening?
My final word, really, please, is that every single one of us has an obligation. If you see people being abused or exploited or harmed in different ways, please do not close your eyes to it. You have to do something to safeguard that person that's being harmed. It is important that you do that, because their life can actually depend on you acting. So I guess, this is what when we talk about being our brother's keeper or our sister's keeper. This is exactly what we're talking about. Do not close your eyes to abuse. Do not close your eyes to exploitation. Do not close your eyes to modern slavery. Thank you very much.
Debbie Aria, we thank you so very much for joining us today. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing in the community. We have your contact details in the contact matrix below this show for others to join you, support you, and to look at the work that you're doing. And we thank you. May God bless you for your time. Thank
And
you.
you too. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
We thank you for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show as we talk about human trafficking, the modern day slavery. We are now going to go to a survivor and an advocate and an advisor of human trafficking, Gina Arnold. Gina Arnold joins us today from the US of A. As she joins us, Gina Arnold, thank you so very much for joining us on the Extraordinary Achievers Show. Thank you for saying yes, taking time out to share your story. Gina Arnold is a trafficking survivor in recovery and coming up to 6 years. Gina is now an advocate and an advisor in human trafficking awareness. Gina, thank you once again for your time. Gina, can you please tell us in a snapshot, what's your story?
Yes, so thank you so much for having me. I feel incredibly honored and blessed to be part of any kind of awareness in regards to human trafficking. I am a survivor of human trafficking by means of sexual slavery. And a snapshot of my journey would be, there were a couple times in my story where somebody in a human service field could have intervened for me. And the way I was looked at, because I was suffering from a substance abuse disorder at the time, was very shame-based. And because of that, I didn't receive the resources or the help that I needed, and essentially ended up going back to face a lot more pain. So my passion and my motivation comes from being dismissed and a lack of compassion that happened to me around that time. I suffered for a large amount of years after that and the shame and the mental torture of all of that, because there was a period of time where I did try to get treatment and essentially ended up going back to my traffickers. There was a lot of shame, and it took me really a series of bottoms. I was actually in prison at that time. I had a downward spiral, and I had faced an end of my journey where I no longer wanted to be a hostage, and I no longer wanted the pain of my life to be my story. And so I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, of healing, and of compassion. And I ended up getting better and received the resources that I needed, because the way that people viewed me, that I had encountered, was with integrity, respect, and compassion. And so essentially, I work in the recovery field. I'm for a substance abuse disorder, trauma-aware organization, and something I'm just really compassionate about is holding space for people. And I just encourage, it's a really big part of my story, just encourage always compassion. And really, I just have learned to take a journey one day at a time. And, you know, the most recent years of my recovery process have been how to navigate life, having this experience and having this pain and being distrusting of the majority of people I encounter. And so whenever I come across people who are compassionate, you know, I always feel very blessed for that. So
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Gina, for that introduction. Gina, when you look back now, how long were you in that position for?
when I was trafficked,
Mm-hmm.
so I was trafficked in total for about a year and a half. I was primarily trafficked for 6 months, and then a situation took place where somebody had overdosed and the authorities were alerted. And during that time, I had tried to tell authorities what was happening with me, and they told me that I was a drug addict, and you know, that I needed treatment, and what I was engaging in was illegal. And they didn't hear the whole story. So I ended up receiving psychiatric care at that time. And when I left that facility, I actually contacted my traffickers and went back into that for another 8 months.
So, Gina, when you went to the authorities to say that you've been trafficked, did you say that they didn't believe you because you're a user? Is that correct?
So they essentially believed me. But they said what I was engaged in was prostitution, and that what I was doing was illegal, and you know, that what I really needed was substance abuse treatment.
Okay. Okay. Gina, we have some comments from the viewers, so we're going to read the comments together from the audience. Melissa says it's horrible that authorities use your past to decide whether or not you need assistance, and when they decide to help, it's too late. Tracy Love says, thank you, Gina, so much for telling us about your journey. You're an inspiration and hope. Bangi says, Gina, keep strong and keep inspiring others. Thank you. Patricia Bailey says, thank you, Gina, very inspiring. Gina, in your work now and reaching out for others, what do you find is the hardest thing for you doing the work that you do at the moment?
Oh, that's a very complicated question. So the difficulty that I have is often just staying present in the moment, and separating my story from other people's story. And at the end of the day, you know, it's always staying aware of, you know, right. So living with post-traumatic stress and, you know, learning how to navigate that. So really just like staying centered and always, you know, maintain self-care and always just really have compassion for myself and what I've experienced, and just really owning my suffering as well as my healing. And, you know, that those things are the maintenance of all of those things that I said above are difficult.
Thank you, Gina. We thank you for that. If you've just welcome to the Extraordinary Achievers Show, where we are talking about human trafficking, the new modern day slavery. We thank you, and Gina, we will be back with you shortly. We are just going to read a few more comments from our guests, viewers. And Molly says, lovely to see you discussing this important topic, and thank you for your support. Was and I say we need more awareness raising and information campaigns. Let's spread the word. Our governments need to create opportunities at home so the children don't feel they have to leave. And say Kay Collar himself from Sound Mind, an amazing, if you have not heard of an amazing Facebook platform, is called Sound Mind. And there's a lot of awareness going on in there. And he says we need to raise more awareness within our community, and very much so indeed. And Bangi says people are not things for other people to use and hurt. It is very sad and heart-wrenching. Africa Children's Charity, the culture of disbelief. Tracy Love says, sad to know the so-called powers cannot put a full stop to this. Okay, Caller says, who is at risk of becoming a victim of trafficking? That's what question we're going to ask coming up soon. Mimi T says, thank you from Marion. We are watching at work to raise awareness of ways this affects our community as well as all over the world. Thank you. Anna says, great discussion, and thank you for joining us. And Zeke says, Gina, thank you so much for your inspiring message. Vicky says, Gina, stay strong and stay safe too. And yes, love is important. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing. And if you haven't done so yet, please share on Facebook groups, share on WhatsApp groups, share with others. We thank you. We are now going to introduce you to a 17-year-old human rights activist. Her name is Lela. Lela, welcome.
Hi, I'm Leela. Thank you so much for having me and for using your platform to talk about this issue.
Thank you so very much for the work that you're doing. Lela is a human rights activist, and she is 17 years of age. You're never too young to join the movement. You're never too young to do something right. You're never too young to believe in goodness. You're never too young to do anything in life. We thank you for representing the youth, the millennium, the adults, the oldies, us, all of us. We thank you for the work that you do. Lela led the International Week of Action Against Modern Slavery and is currently organizing a coalition to combat the issue and to sign up a coalition against modern day slavery. And the link will be put onto the comment boxes below so that you can also sign up to the work that she is doing. Can you tell us what motivated you, what inspired you to do the work that you're doing?
That's a great question, thanks. So I've always really been passionate about human rights and about activism, and I've always really tried to follow the news. And as I learned more about this issue, about human trafficking, forced labor, modern slavery, all this awful exploitation that was going on, I really felt like I had to do something, that I should try and speak out about it. And also just like growing up as a young person at a time where I saw so many other young activists around my age making a difference, standing up for the things that mattered, like having an impact on the world, I really felt like I could do something regardless of my age, that I did not need to wait until I was older to take a stand for the things that mattered.
Amazing. So what have you managed to do so far?
Yeah, so as you said, I organized an international week of action against modern slavery, which reached people from like across 20 different countries, I believed. And during that week, we raised awareness by posting on social media. We contacted our various politicians about the issue. We contacted different companies, signed petitions, just tried to get the word out there to tell our leaders that something needed to be done, to tell the companies who who had forced labor in their supply chain, who exploited people in making their products, that they needed to change. And also the goal was just to try to mobilize, especially younger generations, to learn about this issue and to get active. What I'm currently working on is an international coalition against modern slavery to try and build off of the momentum started by that week of action, and which is where I'm going to be, at least right now, emailing out different ways to get involved to people all across the world, including young people, old people, everyone regardless of their age and background, because everyone can make a difference. So right now it's stuff like petitions, like cleaning up the supply chain, again, contacting politicians, just ways to sort of raise awareness about the issue and put pressure on the people who have the power to make the change for them to make the change. So if you want to sign up for that, I would really encourage it.
Amazing. And let me just read whilst you're on the screen. This is some conversation and communication I had with Duncan Mutembani today. And he was saying, oh my gosh, this is a platform that he wanted to have shared some information. And I said, about what exactly? I had no idea he was so much involved in something like this. And so he said, and I'm hitting on the note that you just said about organizations. He said, we push organizations to make an impact and buy from organizations that are practicing good and staying away from human trafficked labor. And I said, well, that's impressive. How do you go on about doing that? And then he said, we work with activist groups that stand out for trafficked laborers and help them speak out. Also, we rely on modern slavery statements and audits for such organizations. Any suspicious reports have to be investigated. Organizations are encouraged to partner with high-risk suppliers and carry out due diligence to eliminate such risks. He went on to say, for example, if a company hasn't got clear employees' records in areas like cleaning, construction, factories, mainly from Far East, etc., we push big names like Dell and Apple to do their best in demanding such from their suppliers. And then he went on to say, and collaborating to ensure there are no victims in their supply chain. And anyone found, we stop purchase and clarify things and agree how to resolve problems. And I just thought I'd take that communication I had with Duncan Tembani today and in reflection of what you have just shared with us. In your campaign, what has been the response that you've had from others? What's the response like?
There's pretty much been two distinct responses. One is people who are saying, I've never even heard of this issue before. I didn't even know it existed before this. This is so horrific. I need to get involved, because a lot of people don't even know this is happening. The other is when I reached out to organizations to partner with them that are already doing this work. They were just very excited that more people were getting involved. So there definitely are. It's definitely made me realize just how many people don't actually know about this issue yet and how far we still need to go.
Thank you, and amazing. And we will be back with you shortly. And you've just heard the voice of a 17-year-old human rights activist, a powerful voice, a voice that is ready for life. And I think we are all inspired by your passion. And thank you. And we will be back with you shortly. Us on the Extraordinary Achievers today, and we thank you, Honorable Oluwayemisi Jenkins, MBE. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Honorable Yemisi Jenkins, MBE, is the chair of the British Nigerian Safeguarding Consortium. Email address and her hashtag will be found in the comment box below. Yemisi was awarded an MBE for her services to border security and staff well-being. Yemisi Jenkins, MBE, is the chair of BNSE, the British Nigerian Safeguarding Consortium, an initiative she created following the safeguarding challenges in our community. She was the president Association of British Nigerian Law Enforcement ABLE officers, an organization created to change the negativity about Nigerians in the diaspora, to raise awareness and educate on engaging with law enforcement in the UK. She is global coordinator of Friends of ETI-ONI, a UK registered with the aim of raising awareness about the plight of cocoa farmers in Nigeria, Africa. Oluwayemisi Jenkins, MBE, is passionate about diversity and equality and equity, which she recently, and she was appointed NED for a CIC Genius within an organization that focuses on promoting our neurodiverse community. And today we welcome you on the Extraordinary.
Thank you for having me. Good evening again.
Thank you. Thank you once again. Can you please tell us, in your line of work and in the experience that you've had all this time, are we making progress with human trafficking?
I would have loved to say that we're making progress, but unfortunately, like Debbie rightly said, we are not making the kind of progress we would like to see. And this is for so many reasons, one of which is the fact that a lot of people now do not even consider themselves to be victims of modern slavery, which is very sad. And for that reason, because when you're in a situation and you don't even know you're in a bad situation, it is very hard and very difficult for people to be able to help you and for people to be able to take you out of that situation. The second reason is the fact that people who are, or people who should be looking after you, who should have your interest at heart, are the ones that are actually exploiting you. So for these reasons, things are not moving at the pace at which we would love for it to move. But hopefully with events like this, having platforms like this to raise awareness and to make people aware, hopefully we will begin to see movement towards the right direction in addressing modern slavery.
Thank you. We've got some questions from caller, and we're going to direct those questions to you. And Seke says, does human trafficking only occur in illegal underground industries?
Well, yes, but that is not the only place you have trafficking or exploitation. I like to use the word exploitation because that is where it starts from. When Gina was talking, a lot of people who may have met her previously, like she rightly said, would not have agreed that she was being exploited or was in that situation. All the authorities saw was somebody who was into prostitution without actually understanding the root cause of why she was in that situation. So it is not only in industrial environment that we find victims, we actually have them in our homes as well. We have people who will go, let me use Nigeria, for example, who would go to Nigeria or any other African country, say to parents or carers to say, I want to give your child a better life. And this is not only for younger people, also for adults. In my role, working for the government, I have met both adults and children who have been victims, who have been exploited, who have been brought to the United Kingdom for one reason, and they get here and it's a totally different kettle of fish. So it's better for us not to look at it as something industrial alone. It is actually under our noses. Like you said, Lady Winnet, also churches and mosques, in our environment, you find them. But what we need is for people to start asking questions and challenging when you see things that are not really right.
Back on. Thank you. We have been listening to Honorable Oluwayemisi Jenkins, MBE, the chair of the British Nigerian Safeguarding Consortium. We have the next question for you again from Sir K, and he says, is human trafficking a crime that must involve some form of travel, transportation, or movement across state or national borders?
Well, it involves all that you have mentioned: travel, transportation, movement across borders, but it also happens within the country. Some few years ago, we actually had some Irish young men who were actually exploited in the United Kingdom. So it is not only cross border, you can actually have them within countries without people having to travel. Yes, well, when you say travel, moving from point A to point B, but within the same country, yes, it can happen as well.
Thank you. And we have another question again from CK. And this is his third and final question at the moment, and we are giving it to you. And he says, are human trafficking victims only foreign nationals or immigrants?
No, just like I said, some few years ago, we did have some young Irish men who were actually exploited and trafficked in the UK. And the reason why that happened was because they were targeted because of their vulnerability. That is another thing that people use to traffic or to exploit people. We've had situations whereby, because of people's vulnerabilities, such as maybe reading disability, all forms of vulnerability can be exploited. Even in your marital relationship, people are being exploited. I mean, working for immigration enforcement, we've had situations where people have come into the country, brought in their spouse, and decided to exploit them. It is modern slavery as well. And we don't talk about that as well. A lot of people think that that is okay because so many people come from different countries where engaging with law enforcement is a bit of, there's a bit of fear with it. So when they find themselves in that situation, they do not know where to go to. They think that is the norm, which it is not. So it is not only migrants that are being exploited. You actually have indigents as well who can be exploited. You have financial exploitation, emotional exploitation as well.
Yemisi Jenkins, MUB, Honorable Sister, thank you so very much. And we will back you shortly. We are going to read some comments from some viewers at home. And we have comments. Vicky says, Lela, go girl, human rights is important. Keep pushing forward. Week on this. And Lee says, just joined, definitely curious. Thanks for sharing. Patricia Bailey says, amazing young lady. Thank you for bringing awareness to our communities. It's an amazing 17-year-old. And Melissa says, it's wonderful to see young people taking the jump to make a change. Way to go. And Elizabeth Page Ade says, thank you, Debbie. It's a shame to hear human trafficking for organ harvesting. And Gina Arnold says, as traffickers primarily target people of a vulnerable position. And Sefa Seda says, good discussion and thank you. Sekola says, thank you for answering his questions. We are now going to introduce you to Professor Alam Ahmed, a special guest that we have appearing on the program today as a surprise guest for us. Professor Alam Ahmed, we thank you for taking time out and joining us on the show. And thank you for the discussion we had earlier in terms of human trafficking, the modern day slavery. Professor Alam Ahmed is the founding president of World Association for Sustainable Development, WASD, He's a founding director of the Middle Eastern Knowledge Economy Institute, MEQEI, and he's the founder and International Diaspora Project, SK, and Sudan Knowledge. And we thank you for taking time out today. Contact details for Professor will be put in the comment box below. Professor, can you please tell us and enlighten us on WASD, please, the World Association for Sustainable Development, and in line with human trafficking and modern day slavery?
Thank you very much, Lady Whitney. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you very much for your wonderful programs. I watched it every week, and I think you're doing a great work. It's my pleasure to join you. And human trafficking, or before I talk about human trafficking, the World Association for Sustainable Development is a global forum established from 1999, but in 2000 was more of the official launch of the organization. It's a group of academics and institutions. We started as academics from all over the world, in the UK, in London, America, Australia, United Arab Emirates, Sudan, and other many countries. It grown up, it became one of the largest organizations focusing on how countries can achieve sustainable development goals. Our main objective when we started is to help people understand sustainable development is not just about the environment, and it's not just about carbon dioxide at that time. So we work very hard to try to let people understand, in order to achieve sustainable development, you need a multidisciplinary approach, including everyone. The work you are doing here, Chief Lady, is a great work. It helps people understand, like now you are discussing a very critical issue, human trafficking. So this will contribute directly or indirectly to countries' efforts to achieve sustainable development. So we became very interested in this topic because in 2008, as one of our major initiatives was the International Diaspora Project, which we initiated at the University of Sussex at that time, together with the UNESCO Chair on Technology Transfer. And we were very keen to connect the diaspora with their homeland countries to help them with the knowledge and the advancement they have acquired here in the West, like in the UK or in Canada or in America or Australia. But last 3 years, just before COVID, we've been approached by quite a prominent Sudanese lady here, one of the diaspora here, British Sudanese. I can show you the book, actually. See, it's becoming a book now. I'm very glad we have managed to make it a book. Her name is Sumaya Hamid Ibrahim. She is a director at the Paddington Trust here. She is an educator, but she was doing her master's degree at London South Bank University. She was supervised, or she was doing her degree in one of quite a respected master program in refugees studies. So she did that one under the supervision of quite a distinguished professor, Girma, at the South Bank University. But the topic or the area she was investigating is human trafficking in Sudan. And because of the time, and I'm very glad for the few minutes you gave me, what she did, she investigated this case which is happening in Sudan. And that can trigger one thing. You are here in the UK, I am here in the UK, and you are discussing an issue which is thousands of miles away. This can itself give all your audience, Chief Lady, about the importance of the topic you are discussing. It's quite a significant and important topic. Sudan is neighboring Ethiopia and Eritrea, and this is an area in eastern Sudan, Kassala area, and that's eastern Sudan, where there is lots of abduction and human trafficking happening in that area. So Sumaya did extremely well in her master's degree here or in London here by investigating that. She spoken to government, she went there, she met people, she interviewed people, and she met people from the victims themselves, the law enforcement agencies, and she tried to investigate what causing this phenomena and what could be the solution to this particular serious issue. She tried her best to understand the socio-economic impact of this phenomena. The issue is not just about trafficking is about many, many things beyond that. In the book, you will see many things he have discussed here, excuse me, including some of the myths around human trafficking. For example, one of the myths he mentioned in her chapter 6, for example, it's not all human trafficking is about criminal act. It's more than that. Those traffickers, they use lots of things, psychologically manipulating their victims in order to let them exercise many things. They defraud the system. They try to manipulate the women and girls to get into sex or commercial sex or prostitution and so on. So it's not just about abduction and trafficking. And also, most importantly, she tried to highlight here the whole, if you like, the whole story in that micro environment in Eastern Sudan. But the issue is not really as simple as you're trafficking people. It has many, many implications because the lives of those victims needs lots of rehabilitation. It needs education. You need to really look after them at the places where they are, where there is huge poverty. You need to look at them there where there is serious stigma around their living. So imagine they were trafficked from Sudan to Eritrea or from Eritrea to Sudan. It's not just you find them and you protect them, but you need to build a real life for them. So it's a quite big, huge transformation project. Her book is really remarkable in the fact that it got 6 chapters or 11 chapters, sorry. Apart from the basic literature reviews, the methodology, how she conducted that, I'm just not going to go through all these ones and the way she has done the analysis and the result. But she looked into, in chapter 6, for example, she gave you lots of examples of victims. Of course, they were being anonymized in their names, but you can listen to the story. These are serious, these are people who are human beings, are now completely destroyed. And then she went into, she looked into the criminal acts and the human rights acts, and she also looked into the role of the government, the role of the policing, the role of others. So it's quite a lengthy book. It also have a questionnaire and everything. Sumaya is in London, so once this COVID is gone, we will definitely going to have a presentation, which definitely I will bring it to your attention. But it's quite an important topic, and I really congratulate you for discussing this topic. It's quite a serious topic, and somehow or another, this is the least people like you, remarkable people like you, and what we're doing here is try to help those victims back in Eritrea or in Sudan or in Ethiopia or other part of the world. So it's quite a big story here. There's lots of things about poverty, stigma, rejection by the society, even after they were protected by the police and so on. I'm sorry if I took more than you allowed me, Chief Lady, but thank you very much for the opportunity to highlight this. It's called Human Trafficking in Sudan. Sumaya Hamid Ibrahim, and is available even electronically. We can supply it or send it to anyone who is interested.
Professor Alam Ahmed, we thank you so very much for joining us today. And if you've been listening to him, he is the founder of the World Association for Sustainable Development and the founder and director of the Middle Eastern Knowledge Economy Institute and the founder of the International Diaspora Project SK in the United Kingdom. We thank you for taking time out to join us on the show. And we thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. We thank you for your passion and we thank you for your time. Thank you. And we will see you on another episode of the Extraordinary Achievers Show. And for today, we say good night to you. Thank you.
Good night to you. Thank you very much for it. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Professor. We are now going to be joined by Ashley Nicole Jarrell, and we thank you, Ashley, for patiently waiting to come onto our screens. We welcome you onto the Extraordinary Achievers Show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Ashley Nicole Jarrell is a survivor and an advocate of human trafficking, the modern day slavery. Ashley is a 29-year-old who has survived domestic violence, incarceration, and human trafficking. She is a memoir author and has been in substance abuse recovery for 7 years. Since recovery, Ashley has become an advocate for domestic violence recovery and substance abuse recovery. She has worked on projects to bring awareness of victims being trapped with their abusers during the COVID-19 lockdown. Currently, she works in the substance abuse recovery field while obtaining her degree and a license in the social field with the goal of a licensed social worker and a counselor for other victims and survivors. To our YouTube viewers, our Facebook viewers, our LinkedIn viewers, the viewers from our website, we thank you for tuning in and thank you for taking time out to look at the awareness of human trafficking, the modern day slavery. Now going to ask you, Ashley Nicole, how long were you trafficked for?
I was trafficked for a little over 4 years.
And in that time, what happened?
I was trafficked nationally, so I wasn't in one area. So it originally started out as my ex-husband selling me into the industry to somebody else because he felt that I no longer served him a purpose. So I was then sold to connections that were higher than him, and they would take me across the state. I was branded with a barcode. It was a tattoo, so it was a permanent thing that stated in that tattoo, different symbols would tell you like what it was that I could be used for, who it was that they could order me from, and what to specifically ask for so that way they could receive me. During that time, there was no opportunity for me to even be eligible to get help from anybody because of the fact that we were handled with private doctors. We were never allowed out into the public, like we were under a close guard. We never stayed in one place for very long. We basically lived out of a bag, and to be able to get the basic necessities that any normal human being could have, we had to be able to pay. If we were not able to pay, if we were out of commission for whatever reasons, whether it was that one of our Johns abused us or anything of that nature, if we didn't work, we were not able to be paid. We didn't get the basic necessities that we would even need to survive, such as food, water, shower. So we would bounce around from that in hopes that maybe one of the girls who was able to get something, she would store a little bit back for you to even be able to make it through for that day.
Ashley, thank you for giving us an insight of what happened to you. You know, there always comes that phrase that everyone always says, we can never understand because we never walked in your shoes. But what we do is appreciate the strength that you have to have shared your story and to also be doing the work that you're doing. We have some comments directed to you. Mimi says, we love you, Ashley and Nicole Jarrell. We are so proud of you. Tia Lavi says, way to go, Ashley. Well done. And Anna says, proud of you, Ashley. And we also have some questions that we have from our viewers, and we are going to direct those questions to you. T. Alabi says, and I just want to acknowledge that T. Alabi Tawela, a researcher, a scientist, an amazing woman who's doing so much in the community. We appreciate you for your time and appreciate you from being here today. And we met on the Sound Mind with Sarah Collar, and she has been an amazing friend ever since. I call her Bestie. And she calls me Bestie. T. Alabi says, really distressing to hear your experience, Ashley, but so empowered to hear that you broke away and survived. Joy says, so sorry this happened to you, Ashley. And Miranda says, so brave. Vicky says, well done, Ashley. You're brave and courageous. Gina Arnold says, sending so much love. Thank you. And Bangi says, how do perpetrators lure or trap their victims into being trafficked? This is a question that we are going to ask you.
So from my personal experience with me, it was that my husband at the time felt that I no longer served a purpose to him, and so he sold me to somebody else. But the other girls that I interacted with, a lot of them that were targeted were teenage runaways that were basically just looking for that safety, that security, a warm place to sleep at night, a way to have food, and essentially searching for someone to love them. and they had the false promises that the people who were trafficking us told them that they would be safe, that they would be taken care of, that they would be loved, and they would lure them and like that. And it wasn't just the young women. There was also men, just young men that were runaway. They were men of the LGBT community. And it was just a myriad amount of people that we would run into, and they were just looking to fill empty promises that they did not feel that they were getting elsewhere.
Thank you. And Ashley, we have another question, and I think so. This is not directly towards you. This is now in the work that you're doing. Do victims come from a low income or poor background? Now, in the work as an advocate and as an advisor, are you finding that people that are from a low income or poor background are the ones that are more at risk?
I would say that they are more at risk just with the work that I do currently, but I would also say that they are not the only community that is targeted. There is also members who you wouldn't think like that would be able to do such a thing. There were high income families and stuff like that where they're missing that affection, they're missing that love, and they go looking for it elsewhere, or they go to leave, or they go to run away because they think that the situation of the grass is green on the other side. And then when you get into the situation, they always realize that that's not the case. And then they don't even believe that people are looking for them because of the lies that we are told and we buy into, that we aren't experiencing that anymore. Like, they're not looking for us. They don't care about us. We've gone this long and they haven't found us. And that was if the girls and men and children even made it that long.
Thank you. Ashley, I think we have one more question for you coming up, and it is, which countries are affected by human trafficking? And I think that's you. Which area are you working, and who are you working with?
I'm currently working in the United States, and I work in kind of like the Midwest of the United States in an area of Ohio where it's a rural community, and people, if you even bring up human trafficking, they think, oh, that can't happen to us. But the reality is where I am located is we are right along the line where we can go cross country, whether it's traveling from New York to Atlanta or whether we are traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast. And that's just here in America itself. I know that I came across women and men from different countries across the sea and across the ocean. So I know that there are, every country is affected by this. And it's just something that thankfully we are starting to bring awareness to, because it's can affect anyone in any country whatsoever.
In awareness creation, what would you like our viewers to know? What should they avoid? What should they look out for to avoid being in the situation of human trafficking, or to advise others to how to be diligent? What would be your advice to them?
To always be aware of your surroundings, whether it is the middle of the day, early morning, especially late at night. Like, look for people around you. If you're a woman, kind of make sure that you keep your hands free, whether that is by using like a crossbody purse. If you see vehicles that are just kind of like, looks like there's somebody standing by them or even in them, just kind of like try to avoid going anywhere near those, because the only thing it takes is for them to open the door and they can grab you and you have no idea what's happening before it's too late, and then you have no way out whatsoever. Like, and just realize that prostitution is what they're calling it, or soliciting at this point. They're being punished more so than the actual people who are buying them. So if you're a victim, you're going to receive a harsher punishment than the person who is actually buying you and causing a market to be created for you.
Thank you. And Ashley, how can we support what you're doing? Or how can the people around you support what you're doing?
One thing I think that people don't realize about human trafficking is it can start off as something just as simple as domestic violence, and it can proceed as it gets worse, especially if you're in the substance abuse lifestyle, that your partner could even just sell you to just be able to get through that night, and you have no idea what's going on. And if you know people who are in the substance abuse field, or if they're being abused, or you can just see that they are lacking and they're starting to withdraw and they're starting to isolate, just kind of reach out to them and offer that love and offer that support so that way they know that they're not alone, and just kind of talk to them privately away from the person that their partner is, and just be like, is there anything personally that I can do to help you currently?
Thank you. You've been listening to the voice of Ashley Nicole Jarrell, a survivor and an advocate. Nicole, what message in your heart of hearts would you like to share with others today?
To reach out to your children, especially your teenagers. Make sure that they know that they feel loved. Like, it can get overwhelming with work, and it can get overwhelming if you're doing different things, but just kind of start there. Kind of, instead of passing judgment along to the substance abuse victims and things of that nature, like, reach out to them and offer them support and help, and just kind of be like, I can help you, but don't also try and force it, because that's going to turn them away as well.
Thank you, Ashley. Ashley is a 20-year-old who has survived domestic violence, incarceration, and human trafficking. She's a mental author and has been in substance abuse recovery for 7 years. Since recovery, Ashley has become an advocate for domestic violence recovery and substance abuse recovery. She has worked on projects to bring awareness of victims being trapped with their abusers during the COVID-19 lockdown. And currently, she works in the substance abuse recovery field while obtaining her degree and license in the social work field, with a goal of being a licensed social worker and a counselor for other victims and survivors. We salute you. And we're going to read some comments. Vangi says, Ashley, your life experiences have shaped you and made you a powerhouse woman. And Esther says, well done, Ashley. Val says, you're amazing, Ashley. You're powerful and courageous. God bless and keep you safe always. Never doubt yourself. Your resilience is awesome and inspiring. And Princess Toyin, hey, good evening to you. She says, so brave and really proud of you. And Val Robinson saying, thank you, Ashley. We all need to reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place if we can. Quoted from Ashford and Simpson, writers of the song. Vicky says, never judge anyone because you don't know what's going on in their lives. Stay compassionate and understanding others. Ashley, we thank you for your time. And Patricia Bailey says, so proud of you, Ashley. Ashley, we thank you for your time today, and thank you for joining us. Is there anything you would like to say to our viewers as a last word to our viewers for this evening?
Just thank you guys for tuning in and helping bring awareness to the situation. And I hope that each and every one of you are able to go out into your community with a new set of eyes and are able to just reach out to somebody and just acknowledge the situation, and it brings more awareness.
Thank you. And thank you so very much for your time. Honorable Oluwayemisi Jenkins is going to be our next guest that we're inviting back onto our screens. She is the chair of the British Nigerian Safeguarding Consortium. Yemisi was awarded an MBE for her services to border security and staff well-being. Honorable Oluwayemisi Jenkins, MBE, the chair of BNSC, British Nigerian Safeguarding Consortium. Honorable Jenkins, MBE, can you please tell us, what would you like to do if you were made Prime Minister or President for 24 hours? What changes would you bring to human trafficking, the modern day slavery?
Wow, for one day, a lot. One is to raise more awareness and get people to actually understand the what modern slavery, human trafficking, what it is all about. Because once we are able to educate people, like I said earlier, there are some people who are in this situation, they don't even see it as that. They don't see themselves as being exploited. They a good example is people who are employed and are paid under the minimum wage. For them, is an end to a means. Some people would say it's better than earning X number of rupees or X number of naira when you convert it, because they are supporting people back home. What they do not understand is they are being exploited. So for me, being in charge for one day would first be education, 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 awareness, 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 so that everybody can have a good understanding of what these issues are. Once we are able to understand these issues, then we can begin to go after the perpetrators. Because, I mean, if you listen to the victims we've had tonight, it is not a good place. And I keep saying to people that at the end of the day, you cannot tell me that you're helping somebody when you're actually exploiting them. What is the help there? There is no help there. And don't also, I mean, we shouldn't also forget that people's situations are being exploited. The vulnerability is what people exploit. For example, somebody who has no means to survive and somebody approaches them and begins to pimp them, that is exploiting the fact that they are in a bad place or in a bad situation. So for me, it's about that, educating and then putting machinery in place to go after these perpetrators, because people's lives are being destroyed left, right, and center. We need to reassure people that if you find yourselves in this situation, there's actually help. Another thing is for people to know what's in place. For example, the Home Office has a dedicated vulnerability team to support a lot of victims. And people don't know that. People just hear Home Office and they think that it's all about removing people from the UK. No, there is a dedicated team. If you're a victim of modern slavery, human trafficking, forget about the fact that you don't have papers. Some people will say, oh, because I'm here illegally. Forget about that. That becomes secondary. Once you bring it, once you make yourself known, and my colleagues will actually help you if you come forward and say, you know what, I'm a victim of modern slavery or human trafficking.
Amazing. And that is really good for people to know, that they shouldn't look at their situation and think, well, I haven't got any papers, so I cannot go and report that I am being abused, that I am held hostage, that I am in this situation. I think that's a word that we really need people to hear and know. No one needs to be in a situation of slavery of any kind at all, and any abuse at all, because of the situation that they're in, and that the Home Office will help you. And thank you for that. Honorable Yemisi Jenkins, MBE, we thank you for your time. We have some comments that are coming up on the screen, and we have Bangi says, well said, Honorable Jenkins, MBE. We thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing some wisdom and some knowledge. And thank you for the first day of awareness into this topic. We're certain that other platforms and others will pick on the topic so that we can keep on talking about it. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Lela, we welcome you back onto our screens. Lela is a 17-year-old human rights activist, and thank you for having to have joined us on the Extraordinary Achievers show today. Lela led the International Week of Action Against Modern Slavery and is currently organizing a coalition to combat the issue and asking people to sign up against modern day slavery. What do you expect to see in a year's time, in 5 years' time, as time goes on, and in your time as a human rights activist? By the time you get to 21, what's your aim? What's your hope? What's your dream?
Well, my hope is that, first of all, more people start paying attention to the issue. And, to combat this issue, we do need a multifaceted solution. So I do hope for a number of things. First off, improving access to education for young people, especially young women, to help prevent them being trafficked, providing more resources, and information to communities that are more at risk on the indicators of human trafficking and what they can do to protect the people in their community. I also hope that we put enough pressure on companies to improve the ethicality of their supply chains, and that less companies or just no companies really have any forced labor, any of this type of exploitation in their supply chain, where people are being forced to work against their will and unpaid in places like the fishing industry, in the chocolate farming industry, and all of these different industries. I also hope that we can create more and strengthen current anti-trafficking legislation across all levels of government, from local governments to state governments to national governments. I also hope we can provide more assistance to migrants, since they are at such a high risk of falling victim to human trafficking. We need more support for them and more accessible ways of legal migration. And in addition, also investing in the aid of survivors of human trafficking, such as medical care, housing, vocational training, to reduce the very real risk of re-trafficking. So yeah, I hope all these things can come into fruition, and they are only going to happen if we are organizing and if we are calling for this change.
Lela, thank you so very much. I mean, your passion, we can feel it. Everyone has felt it, and we wish you all the best. We will share the link that you sent us for people to sign, and we will share it on all our platforms. And we wish you all the best, and we look forward to hearing from you next year on an update of how you've been getting on. Wherever you get your strength from, keep going. You're an amazing
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
very
much. Thank you. Thank you, Lela. We would like to thank you, our viewers. We'd like to thank you for sharing. We'd like to thank you for liking, for commenting, for being part of the Extraordinary Achievers. For all together, we become the Extraordinary Achievers. We would like to thank the Extraordinary Achievers team, the media team that work in the background, the admin team that work in the background to support me and to bring this show to you. We thank you, and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. we are live, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Meetup, all the platforms, and mostly on our website. Please do subscribe on our website, do subscribe to our social media platforms, and we look forward to joining us next week. We have another gripping title that we bring to the community again. The Extraordinary Achievers' aim is for us to bring the topics that sometimes are not highlighted in the mainstream media, and as a community channel, we would like to bring those to you. So we thank you for your time, and we thank you for joining us. We are grateful for all our guests that we had on the show today. We thank them for their time, and we would like to say thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being amazing. Until next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Good night from us.
Thank you for watching. You can now follow us on Facebook and subscribe our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and comment.